Yeah, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it nice and quickly. Say you have GDP, gross domestic product, and you divide that by labour productivity.
And labour productivity is simply the amount of GDP done in 1 year by one average worker.
And now I've got an error message I've generated by typing that too quickly. Okay, let's start it again, Steve. Here we go. I'm using a new feature, and you make a mistake. We don't actually let you see what you're typing until you've typed it there at the moment. We have to change that. Okay, labour productivity, which let's say takes one worker to produce 1 unit of output.
There is only one type of worker in that society.
Yeah, very simple.
One type of product.
And if you divide GDP by labour productivity, then you get how many workers you've hired, and you divide that by population, then you get employment, and I use the Greek letter lambda for that. And I'll just put a divide by key here.
So lambda is less than 1, and that is 1 minus
Yeah.
That's if unemployment is 5%, lambda is 0.95.
And then economists fantasize about what they call the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, which I call lambda E for equilibrium. And if I give a value of that of, say, 95%, so 5% unemployment rate is supposed to be the level at which workers won't demand wage rises, then if I subtract the two, I get the gap between the current level of employment and the so-called equilibrium level. And I've then multiplied that by a slope to say how fast much workers react to a gap if they want to like a 10% wage rise if unemployment is 1% above that equilibrium level. Then that gives me what I might call a wage function. And I then bring down the integral block here for the wage, I'll call it wage, and give that a value of 1. Then if I right-click and choose copy the variable, I can drag the word wage away from the integral block, and that lets me define a differential equation now. So I have, I've got I need a multiply key here, pardon me. So the slope function multiplied by the gap is the wage function multiplied by the, delete that, right-click and I can delete the wire, and then a multiply block there as well. So the wage function times the wage integrated is the wage. And now if I multiply the wage by labour, and I'll just flip that around, I need a multiply block down here, and that's going to give me the wage bill.
The total wage that's paid in society.
And if I subtract that from GDP, then I have profits. Well, I'll use the Greek letter pi for that. And just assume that capitalists invest all their profits. So we now have investment as another variable which is equal to profit. And investment is the rate of change of capital stock. So if I say capital here, and give, say, 300 units of capital, and then divide that by what economists call, I've just made a typing mistake there, pardon me, call V for they call it the accelerator, I'll just give it a letter V, and say there's 3 units of capital to produce 1 unit of labour, then I ship it a wire all that all together now. Let's give it a try. So I need to divide by a block there. Okay, so the wage multiplied by labour, multiplied by labour is the wage bill. Subtract the wage bill from GDP, you get profit. That becomes investment. Investment becomes capital stock. Divide that by the accelerator and you have GDP. And now if I whack a model inside here and say, well, what's the employment rate look like over time? And I'll just change my runge cutter step, which are probably too big right now. Oh no, max size 1.01, that's good enough. Okay, and simulate the model. And I get a divide by 0. Where have I made that mistake? Got a value 1 there. I gave no value to population. Let's make it, say, 110 people, 110 million. Okay, I've done it again. Oh dear. Never do a demo live. Where else? This is supposed to actually give me a indication of where I've made the mistake. Pardon? Go 300? Yeah. What in the previous version, what would happen is a circle would be drawn around where the 0 is occurring. Let's see. That's set at 1, which is correct. So you should never do a demo live. Which one? Ah, you're right. That's it. I meant to make that. Thought I meant to make it 3. Okay. Well, thank you. Great. So you can instantly. That's how fast you can design a model in the system. In the previous version, we've just gone to a new visual background. It's gone from tickle TK to WK as a background. And in the previous version, if there was an error like that where you had to divide by 0, we put a red circle around it. That we've lost that. That's a retrograde from moving across to the new platform. But I'll get that fixed up with Russell in the next beta. But that would have identified the error being down here with B being 0.
So it showed where
It shows where the error is.
Can
Yeah.
you make a bigger window and show the simulation again? Because this looks like a sine curve, but it is not a sine curve, it's more like a
Yeah. Well, let's just.
predator gray typical shape.
I'll have to make this a bit larger.
Yeah,
And let's have another graph of have the employment rate on the vertical axis and the wage level on the horizontal.
yeah, so it's a
Okay.
it's a predator gray.
And one thing we added is just to make it obvious. I found whenever you had a system which gave you a complete limit cycle or a closed cycle, you never knew where it was. So what we've added now is that little bead to show you what actual point you're up to in a particular simulation like that. It's not so vital in a model like that, but if you imagine you're looking at, say, a double pendulum, another classic chaotic model, then it does sort of help to know where you're up to and looking at a piece of system dynamics like that. So I've got a feeling we should actually put a different colour in the middle when it starts to get too intense. You notice this black one here, you start losing track of it after a while. You can also, let's see, bring up a larger window of a graph if you want to see that in more detail. So I reckon it's pretty cool for 2,000 hours worth of programming time.